What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. It's become official, or not officially official. We'll go through tomorrow when he passes his physical. Steven, how are you feeling? We are here. The saga is over.
It's a good day to be a Jets fan. I'd feel, you and I were talking before the show. I'd say it's hard to contain your excitement. Like, you're still obviously excited. I think the way that I would term it, though, is a little bit more relieved than anything, just to finally have it done and over with. A couple weeks ago, me and Joe Caporoso, we did one show that was my first show back since surgery, just to kind of give you a broad understanding of the timeline here. I had my surgery on March 8th. March 7th, I think the day before was we were tracking the plane, Woody Johnson and co flying out to California to meet with Aaron Rodgers. So it was hot and heavy then. Funny story is I wake up out of open heart surgery. I'm 8 hours on the operating table. My wife sees me, says hi. I hold her hand. I kiss her. I say, I love you. And I say, did we get Aaron Rodgers? Obviously, it didn't happen at that time, but here we are, a month and a half later, 40 some odd days later, and it finally happened. So I think that, yeah, I definitely feel relieved. We'll get into the specifics about it in a minute here. I think ultimately, I'd like to get your thoughts. I think they gave up a little bit more than I was anticipating or expecting or thought they should have. However, the way that it really shakes out, I really do feel like this is kind of a win for both sides. And you really have to do yourself a favor and peel it back to say the Jets got Aaron freaking Rodgers as their quarterback. And you got to feel good knowing that. I think what's also going to come down the pike here soon is that they have an understanding that it's not only for the 23 season, but also for 24.
Yeah. Well, just before I go into this, I will confirm that Russo did ask his wife that, because I was texting his wife just to see how he was doing. And she said the first thing he said to me, did we get Aaron Rodgers when he woke up? I love it.
Yeah, it's debatable on the order of events there, but we'll go with your way. That sounds better for the purpose of this.
Oh, it's so much better for the show. But anyway, you hit on a lot of things that I think it's funny, because we were just talking about this before we went live. I'm excited, obviously, but I think I got more excited the day he said he intended to play with the Jets more than yesterday, just because we've been waiting for this. We knew it was going to happen. It was a matter of when, not if. So it was a little anticlimactic, but it just feels good that all the people were saying, oh, the Jets, they're going to have to, play hardball, or the Packers have to play hardball, whatever it may be. It's over. We don't have to hear about leverage anymore. We don't have to hear about the Packers holding on until September 1st. Yeah, that really worked out. Everyone who was saying they don't need to make a move, everybody knew they were going to get this done for the draft, because the Packers wanted assets for this year's draft, and I don't blame them. They have a young quarterback. But to me, I think the biggest surprise was, number one, the conditions on what the pick is for next year, which I thought it would be a third-round pick with conditions that would come at first, but obviously it was more guaranteed that he comes back if they win the Super Bowl, something of that nature. But also the fact, and I'm not that upset by it, is that they moved back 2 spots and swapped with the Packers for this year's first-rounder. Everything else, we knew the second rounder was going to be in, whether it was 42, 43, but it makes sense that it would be 42 because it's one slot higher, so the Jets can't take their guy for whatever reason. But to me, yeah, I don't like the conditions of the first rounder. It's basically almost guaranteed to become a first rounder, because you're expecting him to play 65% of the snaps. If he doesn't, it's an unmitigated disaster, because it means he got hurt or whatever it may be. And, it's going to be a first round unless he gets hurt. So for me, yeah, you could poke at that all you want, but he's here and it doesn't freaking matter, because he's a Jet and we finally have a quarterback to run this team, and I'm excited. What are your thoughts on the trade package itself?
Yeah, I think the more minor of the surprises was the pick swap, 13 for 15. I think people that categorize it and say that Green Bay got pick number 13 overall, you're kind of making it seem a little bit one-sided there. It's a pick swap. They moved up 2 spots. Let's not, say the Jets got fleeced or anything like that. I don't think that happened. That did surprise me a little bit. It does suck to be picking after New England, especially knowing that they're kind of offensive line needy. But again, I think Connor said it on Badlands. They're always a wild card in the draft, especially in the first round. You never know what they're going to do. I think you hit the nail on the head in regards to the bigger surprise being the conditions of that second round pick moving up to a first. I think it all but guarantees that it's a first round pick. I thought, similar to your, where your frame of mind was at, was that it was going to be more contingent upon team success. If they get to AFC Championship, if they get to Super Bowl, then a 3 becomes a 2 or a 2 becomes a 1 or whatever that may be. The fact that it's 65% of the offensive snaps, that all but guarantees that it's a first round pick. However, what I do think, and what we kind of alluded to earlier in the show here, is that I do think that the Jets got some sort of guarantees that Aaron Rodgers will be here beyond 2023 and into 2024, which I know that Connor Hughes has been kind of on that, saying that you'll be surprised and happily surprised at what the deal will be, and that it does guarantee him a second year. So I think we feel a lot better about that. And honestly, again, it's to the point that I made to open, it's Aaron freaking Rodgers. Like, if we get good Aaron Rodgers for 1 year, for 2 years, like, we're going to be absolutely happy with that. He is by far the most talented quarterback this organization has ever seen. So the time is now to capitalize on it. This is, playoffs or bust, definitely. And in all reality, it's Super Bowl or bust for 23 for the Jets.
Yeah, 100%. And I like what you're talking about with the contract situation, because it was something I wanted to touch on, because I've heard some things. Can't guarantee any of it's 100% accurate, but yeah, everyone says it's super generous. I've heard that the number next to those zeros is a single digit. I don't know what that means. I don't want to, credit anybody in case it isn't correct, but it's going to be a contract that allows this team to make more moves to help supplement Aaron Rodgers, and also just get this team closer to being a championship team, which we think they're pretty darn close now that they have him. And for me, I don't think it's done. I know they brought back Connor McGovern, and now Rich Cimini said that there still remains contact between the Jets and Quan Alexander, which I love that, because it just allows more depth in the linebacker room, which we think is pretty thin for the most part. But, Aaron Rodgers is here. And let me ask you, and let me ask everybody else. If the Jets, listen, if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's obviously going to be disappointing, because that's what the expectation is now, which it's who are we to say, oh, the Jets are expected to try to get to the Super Bowl and win it? We haven't had those expectations since 2011 or whatever it may be. So are you seriously going to be upset if, we get to the AFC Championship game and the pick is 30th overall? No, I'm not. It's basically a second round pick. And that means this team is close enough where we don't need that. We could always use it, but we could find other ways to get more talent. To quote, what's his face, the guy in the Rams last season, fuck them picks. Seriously, fuck them picks. I don't really care anymore. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say in April leading into May, Super Bowl or bust, but it's hard to win a freaking Super Bowl. Obviously,
it is.
One out of 32 teams. People discredit and throw shade at Aaron Rodgers because he's only won one, but he's been in it and a threat to win it every single year. And it's hard to win. So when you look at it, from a Jets fan perspective, and honestly from the most objective perspective that you could have, it has to be playoffs or bust. If the Jets go 8-9 and miss the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers playing a full season, I'm going to be disappointed. There's no question in that. If they make the playoffs and get to a divisional or an AFC championship and lose, that's not a failed season. I'm not going to say that. This team hasn't seen the playoffs in 12 years. So let's make sure that we keep those things in perspective. But again, when you look at the gauntlet that is the AFC, it's not easy. But the good thing is, and let's not put the cart before the horse, but what you can confidently say is that if the Jets get to a playoff game and have to walk into Arrowhead or Cincinnati or Buffalo or any place like that, it is not an automatic loss when you have Aaron Rodgers at the helm for your team. And that's the biggest thing that you can take away, because he can go toe-to-toe with the likes of Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or anybody else like that. And there's no question about that either, because if Aaron Rodgers comes in and has an Aaron Rodgers type game, then he can pull it out. And that's the confidence that you have as a Jets fan coming out of this now with Aaron Rodgers as your QB, is that that there's no guaranteed losses here on the schedule, not only in the regular season, but especially if you make it to the postseason and have to go on the road to win a game.
Yeah, there's not going to be a week next year unless Rodgers was to be hurt where you're the Jets can't win that game. Yeah, they could beat anybody that they play now. I mean, at least they have a chance. I'm not saying they're going to. I don't think they're going to go 17-0, but 10 wins to me is they have to get to 10 wins. I think they should get to 11 or 12 personally, with the level of talent on this team and what we expect from Rodgers from his ability. But yeah, it's awesome. It's an exciting time to be a Jets fan. Yeah, it's probably going to be short-lived, probably 2 years if I had to make an educated guess today. But, if one of those 2 years ends up with a Super Bowl or even really getting to one, you're going to be happy. It's so worth it. And we just want a chance. That's all it is. I'm not predicting anything. Nothing's guaranteed. You've seen time and time again teams that you thought could do something and they end up falling short because of whatever reason. But the Jets have a puncher's chance. And to me, that's all you can ask for. The team is trying to win a championship. It's not, rebuilding, being competitive. No. Like they are going all in, like you're, putting all your money in the middle of the table during a poker game. And it just excites me. That's all I can say. So I feel like everyone's been digesting this, but I think the big thing here is, since the draft is in 2 days, is like, what do they do at 15? Because all offseason long, we've been hearing, the Paris Johnsons of the world, Skoronski, Broderick Jones, whoever, now even the Darnell Wright from Tennessee. But I think that there's a chance that they don't necessarily go offensive line. I mean, that would be my preferred option, really, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty with an old Dwayne Brown, Becton, who hasn't been reliable for 2 years, Max Mitchell coming off the blood clots, and then obviously you got guys on the interior. Lakin didn't play that well last year, and McGovern was okay, and they just run him back. But to me, I think there's a chance of an interior defensive lineman. I think they're very thin beyond Quentin Williams. I know that they signed the guy from the Seahawks. I can't remember his name, but I think it's Quentin Johnson. Quinn Jefferson. I'm mixing him up with the TCU wide receiver.
Yeah.
And then they obviously have Solomon Thomas, and then they have JFM. So it's like they have guys, but they really need someone else. And Quinn's contract is still an issue. So I don't foresee him holding out very long or anything like that. I think that'll get done before camp. But I think the guy from Pitt is really a realistic option, or if a guy like Jalen Carter slips, that they would really pull the trigger with that, especially if the top 3 offensive linemen are off the board, which I think is a pretty high possibility that it happens, because a lot of teams need offensive line help. I mean, New England might need it. I think the Raiders could use it. Plenty of teams can use it. So what do you think about that? What do you think they'll do at 15 now that they've moved back 2 spots?
Yeah, I still feel like offensive line is going to be the pick if one of them is there. And that's just knowing Joe Douglas's philosophy, how much emphasis Robert Saleh really put on the injuries to the offensive line and what that meant to the demise of this team down the stretch last year. I think he put so much blame on that fact and didn't hold back about it. It was obvious, right? So I don't think having depth, especially young depth, would be a bad thing at all. I don't think you can fully rely on Dwayne Brown, Mekhi Becton at either tackle spot. Obviously, Dwayne Brown's, I think, 38, approaching 39, or just turned 38, obviously coming off of shoulder surgery. Mekhi Becton is a wild card. I mean, if he comes back, great. That's a cherry on top, but you can't rely on that either. Max Mitchell coming off of blood clots. That's a serious thing.
Very serious.
He played, well, for a rookie, sliding into the right tackle starting spot. Elijah Vera Tucker coming off of a torn pec, right? Torn triceps, torn pec, whatever it was.
Shoulder injury, not pec.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, like season-ending injuries, you re-sign Connor McGovern, who I'm not mad about that re-signing. I think it's good. I think he's a consistent player. I think he's reliable. I think he's kind of the, low risk, type of signing. And they were talking to Ben Jones, who knows if Ben Jones is going to play football anymore. And then Lincoln Thompson, who obviously had a down year. So I just think that solidifying that offensive line, knowing that you have Aaron Rodgers, who is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. But when you look at the stats, when he's protected, clearly that's they're going to put a huge emphasis on there. So honestly, because the Aaron Rodgers saga has taken so long, you and I have talked about it. Like, I feel like it's taken my attention away from the draft, really. So outside of OL, I don't know what else they would do at 15. I think you could be right in the Kalijah Cansey. Not sure if an undersized defensive tackle is kind of what they're looking for to pair with Quentin Williams, or if they view him as an every down lineman. But in the Saleh, scheme, really, they rotate defensive linemen all the time. So it may be the perfect fit. And then you wonder if a team gets frisky and wants to trade up, and if Joe Douglas, gets frisky himself and wants to trade back and kind of recoup some of the draft capital that he lost in the trade with Green Bay. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm excited to see kind of how it shakes out. But like I said, to open, if OL is truly there, one of the top 3 or 4 at 15, I can't see them going away from that, particularly if it's a guy that they think has some versatility that can maybe play multiple spots along that line.
Yeah, I think trading back is definitely something they need to consider, especially if one of the tackles is there, because if there's a guy that they like, that they feel will be there if they move back 10 spots, recoup those assets to fill other needs across the roster. Like I know Joe Caparosa has been saying, maybe taking a tight end because it's a really good class, even though you're like, why would they do that? They have the two guys they signed, Uzama and Conklin last year, plus they drafted Rucker. But like, you'd imagine that one of those guys is probably not here next year. You'd think that they'd move off of one of them unless they both play really well and they feel as confident in Rucker. So to me, I think that's something you have to consider, especially the big thing for Jet fans to do is watch to see if any of these quarterbacks drop. Like, I think Bryce Young's going number one. It seems pretty safe, but there's been a lot of questions about the Texans that they may not take a quarterback, which obviously has three of them moving further back than we initially thought. So if a guy like Richardson, Stroud, I know there's been stuff with the S2 test, maybe he drops a little bit, or Will Levis. Like, if a team wants him at 15, I feel like that's such a prime spot, middle of the first round. The contract's a little bit cheaper than I'm paying for a top 10 quarterback. I know it's like a little bit, but these things matter from a cap perspective, long-term thinking. Plus, the other thing is that people actually aren't talking about is one of the teams, I think it's the Dolphins. They don't have a first round pick. They lost it because of the stuff with Stephen Ross. So there's only 31 first round picks, which means there might be teams more aggressive, one less spot in the first round to get that fifth year option, which matters a lot for quarterbacks. I know that's not something that we're thinking about as Chef fans, but it is something that teams are thinking about if they want to trade 100%. Up to get somebody. So you never know. Draft day is always weird. There's always things that happen that surprise us. I think Bryce Young going one is really the only thing I feel pretty confident about, but everything after that, I don't really know what's going to happen. And the Jets, being at 15, you have no idea who's going to be on the board. So it's fun because we're not, a top 10, pick, because that usually means you suck. And, we'll see, because hopefully this guy can contribute whoever they take, in a championship or bust year.
And what's nice is that you can confidently say, like, okay, the Jets have kind of shrunk down the holes that are on their roster to the point where the needs aren't so widespread where they can go any one of the directions. Like, really, you feel like the needs are offensive line, interior defensive line, linebacker, safety, and wide receiver. And they're probably not going any of the latter three in the first round, unless like if a JSN drops to 15 and the top four O linemen are gone, like I would be all for that. And then that gives you more flexibility, gives you a guy to kind of bring along, as that 2A, 2B option outside, on the opposite side of Garrett Wilson. Like that'd be something I'd be all for it. Interesting to see. But also the other fact is you're talking about trading up. A guy like that drops and some team's really hot for him, and Joe Douglas can recoup a second round pick, one of the 42 that he lost. Then that's obviously in play. And I know Joe Douglas likes those picks. So I think it's a deep draft. So we'll see kind of how it shakes out. But it's going to be fascinating. It's nice that we're kind of playing with house money, so to speak. We got the quarterback. Like, we don't have so many needs to fill. Like, it's kind of nice to see what the Jets are going to do, knowing that we can be a little more confident with the draft this year.
I don't think JSN will be there at 15. I think the Packers are targeting him with the pick that they just got from us.
Isn't that something, like never a first round receiver taken when Aaron Rodgers at the helm, and they trade Aaron Rodgers and go get him at 13?
They heard what he said on Pat McAfee a month and a half ago, whatever it was at this point. They want to be petty. I mean, most divorces and marriages and stuff like this, it never ends well. So they want to make this, he's not a rookie quarterback, but he is essentially, because this will be his first full season as a starter. They want to give him as much talent as they can to see what they have, because they have to make a decision about what they want to do with him long term. Because I think they have to choose if they want to pick up his fifth year option, which I think at this point they're probably not going to do, because you've never really seen much from him. I mean, outside of mop-up duty last year, I think it was against the Eagles on primetime, and he had one start. I think it was against Kansas City it was in 2021 when Rodgers had COVID. You haven't seen much, so you really don't know. And I think that they like what they have, but they want to definitely surround him with his best talent as they can. And hopefully, maybe a guy like JSN does slip and maybe the Jets pull the trigger, because I would be super cool with that. I think having him and Garrett together would be awesome, because they're former teammates at Ohio State. They're good friends. He even has said in the past that JSN's better than him, which that might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, because Garrett's awesome. Maybe he's just trying to get his friend dressed a little bit higher.
It felt a little scripted, but I'd be hard pressed to believe that Garrett Wilson thinks that anybody's better than him. But hey,
I feel like every NFL player thinks that nobody's better than them, if we're being honest with ourselves, right? Yes. Remember D. Milner? He's like, I'm the best quarterback in the league. Oh, that guy sucked. This is great. So it should be an exciting weekend because, you know, he's always about the future, but with this team, it's the now, and we're going to see what they're going to try to do to really help this team win football games this year. To me, I think I'm most excited about, in addition to obviously, you know, the 15th pick, it's just whatever Rodgers' contract looks like, because I feel like if it's like as cheap as they were saying it's going to be, maybe they trade for a veteran guy to help a big position need. Maybe they trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe they trade for somebody who's available. I remember I mentioned Michael Pittman. We had Joe on, like, maybe he becomes available. I don't know. If I was the Colts, I wouldn't trade him, but he may want a contract and they may not want to pay him what he wants. So anything's possible. We didn't think that AJ Brown would get moved the way he did during the draft. Sure. And we were obviously all like, why didn't the Jets do that trade? Well, I don't think he wanted to play for the Jets, which is probably why it didn't go through. So much to come, you know?
And you've kind of seen the NFL kind of have that uptick over the course of the last few years with more trade deadline moves, more draft day moves of actual players. So it becomes more of an exciting time. And I think you're right. Like, now that Rodgers is officially here, the draw to come to New York for an offensive weapon obviously is bigger. So I still think that seeing how this wide receiver room shakes out is one of the more fascinating questions over the next few months, because I'm a fan of Corey Davis. I like him, right? Mm-hmm. I like what he brings to the table in terms of his blocking ability and his big play ability. I think over the course of the last 2 years, even with Zach Wilson at the helm, he's been, outside of Garrett Wilson, their biggest big play threat. He made the big play against Cleveland. He had the big play against Tennessee in 2021. He had a deep ball against Green Bay that I think set up a score. So like, he's been good, but the biggest questions remain are, can he stay healthy? Can he be reliable to make catches? And is he going to continue those boneheaded mistakes and penalties that truly set your team back? I think if he can rectify those things, and he's a nice like 2B or 3 option, because I don't think you can rely on Mecole Hardman to kind of be the full-time slot. So if you have a nice balance of Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard, and Corey Davis, that could work. However, it can't be relied upon. So to your point, Stephen, going and getting a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, or if a Michael Pittman is truly available, or if there's a name that we're not thinking of right now that may be available, I just think there's someone in that mold that can split time between opposite, or can split time with Lazard being opposite of Garrett Wilson. That's what this team needs, because I just don't think the way that it's set right now, you can truly rely on that. And that's kind of my biggest question mark as we continue through, the next few months in training camp, is what they really do with that. Are they really going to roll into the season with this? And maybe that's their plan. The way that I see it, I know that the coaching staff thinks the world of Corey Davis. I know they love the intangibles and kinds of the things that only show up on game film that the naked eye doesn't really see. I know they love that stuff out of him, but from my perspective, I don't know if you can truly rely upon that to be, something that you can really count on come Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep him, that's fine, but I would prefer to upgrade if possible. If they traded for someone or they drafted someone but like, he's fine, but I think Lazard is going to do a lot of the things that Corey's done in the past. And I think he's younger, he stays healthy, and he also has familiarity with the quarterback. Excuse me.
And he's 6'5", 230. Like, Corey's a big dude. Allen Lazard is huge.
Yeah, he's
6'5", 230. That's something, we've emphasized it. Joe and Connor on Badlands have emphasized that they're a small team, so getting bigger and getting someone in the red zone. And now, like, think about that with legit quarterback play, like what this red zone offense could look like now. With
these tight ends are going to eat.
Tight end, exactly. You got Uzama, you got Rucker hopefully coming to his own. You got Conklin. Like, this could be, this offense should be good and really exciting. And that's something that's like, I mean, I don't even know how to, it's like, Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, it's like, you really don't know how to react to that, because it's been so long since the Jets have had a legitimately good offense. But I really do think this has potential to be one.
It does. So we're going to do two more things before we wrap, because I know you have some kids coming off the bus soon.
Yes.
Predict Aaron Rodgers' stat line in 2023, assuming he plays a full season.
Oh, jeez.
And if you want me to go first, I will. I'll give you my numbers.
Yeah, go first. Let me.
So he is going to be the first Jets quarterback in a while to throw over 4,000 yards. I think he's
in a while. I think since Joe Namath.
Yeah,
the only other one.
I wasn't sure if Fitz did. I realized that.
No, Fitz. I think Fitz threw for like just over 3,000.
Yeah, or Kenny O. Kenny O might have actually, but I think he'll throw for like 4,500 yards, I think like 34 touchdowns and like 9 interceptions, completion percentage of like 66%. And I think I'll probably have like 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. So that's almost like, if I said 34 touchdowns, 37 total, you'll sign up for that any day of the week as a Jets fan.
Yeah, I mean, I like that stat line. I'll stay right around where you were. I'll say probably like 4,200 yards, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 38 TDs, 9 or 10 picks, throw a couple of rushing touchdowns in there. I think that's fair. And I think probably around the 62 to 63% completion percentage mark. I do think you're going to get him throwing the ball downfield a little bit more, which will obviously lead to a lower completion percentage. But I do think the Jets have the ability to go deep. I think you see the highlights from Green Bay. Allen Lazard has the ability to get deep, especially with his size. Clearly, Mecole Hardman does with his speed. And
I'm
I think
excited about him.
And yeah, me too. If he can stay healthy, like that's a big addition. And not more than just a gadget guy, but the gadget part of him excites you too. And I think something that we just simply couldn't see because of the quarterback play was Garrett Wilson's ability to get deep and make plays. And that's got to excite him. I mean, that's got to excite the fan base and Garrett Wilson himself to be able to kind of, make some plays down the field and not just making it all happen in the middle of the field himself after the catch.
Yes. So the next one's going to be tough. And I'm going to help you a little bit because we obviously heard the rumor from Schefter yesterday that they probably are going to have 6, primetime games.
Yeah.
Who are those 6 opponents going to be? I just put in the chat for you to see who their opponents are. So you have a list, you can look at it. So I'll go first. Okay. I know the Chiefs are coming to MetLife. That's going to be a primetime game. Like there's no doubt that the NFL is not salivating of having Rodgers, Mahomes in New York in primetime. That's definitely going to happen. I think Cowboys and Jets on Thanksgiving at 4:00 is definitely a primetime game. So that's 2. I think Giants will be one because why not have the New York rivalry going? I think we'll have some AFC East ones. I think Buffalo, and I also think New England. So that got to 4. And then I think there's a chance that the Chargers, the Eagles, I don't know. But I think those 4 for certain. And, maybe the Browns. Maybe the Browns like the low-key one,
The Browns could be interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think the certain ones are Dallas, the Giants, and I think Buffalo, New England. I think you probably have a Thursday nighter, Monday nighter, Buffalo, New England, however that shakes out.
Yeah, dude, that one's if they play New England in primetime, it's gonna be Thursday night. It's not gonna be Monday or Sunday.
And I agree with you. I think the other probably 2 out of the 3 will be it'll be 2 out of the 3 Eagles, Chargers, Kansas City. I think Kansas City is obviously a huge draw. Mahomes against Rodgers. I think the Eagles being obviously defending NFC champs, like that's a big one. But I just think that the draw of kind of the Chargers, Justin Herbert being this young, big gunslinger against Aaron Rodgers, like that could be just one that's, maybe they just throw it in as like either a Sunday nighter or a Monday nighter or something like that. But I don't know, man. The old guy in me is like, I love primetime games. A lot of the greatest memories I have as a Jets fan are on primetime. Like the Monday Night Miracle. I know they beat the Dolphins on Christmas night on a Sunday night game in 2006 to set themselves up for a win and in game. There's so many cool memories on Monday night, but man, the older I get, the more I like those Sunday 1 p.m. slate games.
Well, yeah, because
you know what I mean?
You could sleep a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that there's a chance. I think Kansas City should be one, but I also could see CBS being like, no, we want that for 4:25.
True.
I mean, they want that to be a Jim and Tony game, so I get it. But
I do think if I were a betting man, I'd say the lock is Jets Giants Week 1 Sunday Night Football. And lock and Jets Cowboys at 4:00 on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so I know people floated out the Chiefs, but they can't because they can't. They would be what's it called? The Chiefs are at home. Yeah, they're at home on Thursday night, and someone said that the Jets I think are playing at home. I'm not 100%. Oh, I'm sorry. The Jets are playing the Chiefs, but it's in MetLife, and the game has to be in Kansas City, so they can't be playing the first game of the season.
Yeah.
So I was trying to remember what it was, why, they couldn't be in that game. And honestly, I'm happy because that would suck if they went into the first week and then lost in Kansas City.
I know. Jets, Giants, Sunday night opener.
That would be pretty sweet.
That's what it's going to be.
All right.
That's my prediction.
I'll take it. It would be cool if it was New England and we could beat them finally. That would definitely get the season off to a high note, right?
Yeah, that'd be good. Just get that monkey off the back immediately and out of the way.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Steven, before I let you go?
No, like I said to open, it's a good day to be a Jets fan. I think you just have to be encouraged. You have to give Saleh, Joe Douglas, and Woody Johnson credit for
Yep.
getting this done, for closing the deal, and ultimately, you know, building a culture that Aaron Rodgers wants to be a part of, and that's a big thing. That's a win for the organization. So let's just enjoy it while it's here. Enjoy the draft. This is typically our time to shine, the offseason, the free agency period, and draft. But now, you know, we have a legit roster and quarterback that can make a serious run. That's something to be excited about.
So all you want is a shot, like I said earlier in the show. We appreciate everybody who tuned into the live stream. The show will definitely be on Apple and Spotify, you know, shortly after we go dark. Thank you to everyone who subscribed, whether it's on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, Amazon. And if you have not done so, please do so. We really appreciate all the support. We've hit some milestones in the past few months from a sub perspective. And it's great when we get that feedback from people of what they like about the show or what they want us to do differently. So to subscribe, make sure youtube.com/TurnOnTheJetsTV, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, just search Turn on the Jets Live. You'll see our logo, which shows up. And we look forward to talking to you guys